Hi everyone, welcome back to our digital outreach series for the Aiken County Historical Museum. Today we're going to be doing a brief walkthrough of the Aiken Public Safety exhibit down in the basement of the museum. And I say brief walkthrough just because there is so much stuff in this exhibit that we could spend tons of time just going over it all. But we're just going to give you a brief view of the exhibit, something to entice you to come see it when we're open. And with that, let's get started. Here we have a photograph of William Turnbull, who is the City of Aiken's first fire chief for the Aiken Volunteer Fire Department. And this photograph shows him late in life in 1935 when he's riding on the back of the steam engine that we just saw. So let's move on over to that steam engine and talk about that for a minute. So here is that steam engine. It was purchased by the City of Aiken in July of 1880. They paid $2,500 for it. And it was the first one for the City of Aiken, and it was such an excitement over it when it arrived. There was a whole parade when the steam engine first came into town and paraded down the street. The fire engine was in use from the 1880s all the way until 1932. The last fire it helped fight was this one of the actual fire station on Park Avenue in 1932. So the steam part of the steam engine could be generated with either coal or wood, and that would be put into the belly of the engine where it would produce heat, which would come up into this area that had the water, which would then create steam, which would travel through these pipes into the bulb area where it would connect to a hose. Now these were not horse-drawn fire engines. They were people-drawn fire engines. So here you can see a photograph of the volunteers, and they've got a little attachment out front that allowed them to pull it out onto the streets. And that's actually the county courthouse behind them. Here's a photograph from much later in 1920, but it shows the Aiken Volunteer Fire Department, and they are pulling a hose cart. Of course, eventually, the steam engine that could have been horse-drawn or people-drawn had to be upgraded. And this was a fire truck that was purchased by the City of Aiken in the 1950s. Originally, it came off the line in 1943 and was used by the Aiken Municipal Airport. Well, when the City of Aiken received the airport from the federal government, they also received this fire truck. And you may think that to yourself that this looks very familiar, and that's because this fire truck is actually on loan to us by the City of Aiken, and it is still used by them. They come here and rev it up and get the engine going, and they drive it in the Christmas parade each year for the City of Aiken. Not only do we have fire engines and photographs here, but we also have gear that is used by both the police department and the fire department side of Aiken Public Safety. So here we have some riot gear that could have been used by the Aiken Public Safety. And we've got some firefighting gear. You may be wondering, how did the fire department learn of fires in the area before there were telephones? Well, this was a firebox, and I've got my nitrile gloved hand so I can open it up for y'all. Don't do this at home or in our museum. So this was used to notify firefighters that there was a fire going on. You could actually, if you were patrolling in the area and you noticed that there was a fire in a nearby structure and you were a fire warden of the area, you could open up the box with your special key, press the zone that the fire was occurring, and then that would send a notification to the firehouse that there was a fire in zone such and such, and that would tell them to report to the fire. And of course, no exhibit would be complete without disaster photographs. So this is a photograph of when lightning struck the Aiken County Courthouse bell house, or bell tower, and caught it on fire. And of course, the courthouse bell now resides on the museum's grounds because after this fire, the bell collapsed into the building and cracked. So we have the courthouse bell on our grounds. One of the last things I'm going to show y'all is what I consider to be one of the more fascinating pieces of our exhibit, but I think a lot of people miss it or don't know what it is. But this is a piece of scrap metal that was recovered from the crash site of a military plane. In fact, in September 3rd of 1975, a B-2 bomber with a crew of 7 men were flying over Montmorency when, for unknown reasons, the plane exploded. It brought down, of course, the plane into the Montmorency fields, and about, I think it was several hundred people responded to the crash, both from the Aiken Public Safety side and the military side of Fort Gordon base here in Augusta. 3 of the men from the crew were killed, and their bodies were recovered. And here we have the label about the day the metal rained from the sky. Well, that's it for our tour of the public safety exhibit in the basement area of the Aiken County Historical Museum. We hope that you have enjoyed this tour and that you will come see us and explore it on your own when we are open to the public. Thank y'all so much. Have a good day.